Oceans are often depicted as empty, uniform spaces, perceived as mysterious and ungoverned, or even ungovernable. In recent years, as the oceans have received increased attention amid concerns about climate change and loss of biodiversity, among other issues, visual data about the oceans has proliferated. Maps are common ocean data products, and these maps not only represent ocean space, but also help create it. Mapmakers make choices that influence thinking about oceans and even the ways they are managed. At the Digital Oceans Governance Lab, we're analyzing the maps being created by Ocean Data Science Initiatives, or ODSIs. ODSIs are initiatives that mobilize data about the oceans with an express goal of informing or improving their condition. Our goal is to understand the choices ODSIs make in maps and how those choices create oceans as spaces for governance. We're also exploring these maps in the context of a larger data set of information about more than 100 ODSIs that our team has put together over the past few years. That data set includes information such as the ODSI's area of focus, whether it be fisheries, biodiversity conservation, or basic science, the type of actor, for example, government, nonprofit, or corporate, or its policy concerns, whether it has specific policy goals or proposals, along with many others. In total, we have about 70 different characteristics in the catalog. The ODSI characteristics may ultimately be related to the choices they make in creating maps, impacting who can access the information, how the data are perceived, and the way we think about possibilities for how oceans might be governed. It's necessary to understand the patterns in the data because there's a huge diversity in the ways that ODSIs create maps. First, there are different ways that ODSIs allow users to interact with maps. Some maps are interactive, and the user can customize the way that the data are represented. The level of customization varies from map to map, and ODSIs may provide the ability to zoom in and out, to change the timescale, to filter the data shown, or to click on the map for additional information. Other maps are static images, which are not customizable, and the map makers have defined all of these characteristics for the end user. Still others provide geospatial data files that users can download, manipulate, and analyze, but only if they have the specialized expertise and analytical capacity to do so. ODSIs also choose what data to present and how to depict it. For example, here are two maps, which both provide spatial information about marine protected areas, or MPAs, but they do so in very different ways. The first map uses polygons that spatially demonstrate the size of each MPA, with color coding based on the level of protection. The second map instead represents each MPA as a point, with color coding indicating the size of the MPA. There is no information in this map about the level of protection. The different choices mean that similar data can often visualize the same spaces differently. By examining these visuals, we can learn more about the way actors in ocean governance perceive ocean spaces and what possibilities maps might create for changes in governance going forward. Over the summer, as a computational thinking fellow, I developed a protocol that combines qualitative and quantitative analyses to find out how visual data products help us think about oceans as spaces of potential governance, and whether these visual depictions may vary depending on ODSI characteristics. We start by coding various attributes of the map using NVivo. Variables include scale, the geographic area shown, which boundaries the map includes, and information about symbology, among others. Since categorical data does not tell the whole story of the map, we also write memos to describe our impressions of the visuals. We then use NVivo to code themes we see revealed across maps. Example themes might be oceans as empty spaces, as extensions of state territory, as management areas, or as biodiversity hotspots. This qualitative analysis lets us gather rich, in-depth information about what impressions these visual images produce. However, there is also a lot more quantitative analysis we can do with a programming language like R, including how visual aspects of the map relate to characteristics of the ODSIs themselves. For example, we might ask whether government-run ODSIs are more likely to show state boundaries than NGOs, or whether they present different types of data. Are some types of ODSIs more likely to show the oceans as empty spaces, while others show them as hotspots of biodiversity? These are just a few examples. To allow us to quickly reproduce these inquiries with different variables, I've written some code to clean in vivo data and examine the relationships among visual qualities of the maps and the characteristics of the ODSIs. We can run queries in vivo to summarize qualitative data about the visuals, then use this R code to clean and import the data into RStudio for further analysis. So here's one simulation, which is just an example and not based on real data, that depicts how the presence or absence of themes reflected in visual images might differ depending on whether the ODSI that created the visual is a government organization, a nonprofit, or a corporate entity. Since this code is reproducible based on NVivo's standard format for exporting files, as we continue to import maps into our database and code them, we can easily rerun the analysis to see what patterns are emerging in these visual images. The end goal is not to indicate which maps are better or worse, but to explore how the maps resulting from new data technologies shape understandings of the ecological and governance challenges that oceans present, and new possibilities for how they are envisioned and managed. The stakes are particularly high, as ODSI's visual data products are often publicly available and can have widespread impacts on how oceans are viewed. By combining qualitative and quantitative methods, we can critically evaluate how maps, and the ODSIs that make them, are influencing ocean governance choices now and in the future.